Good afternoon everyone, this is Tanya Clark from Sewcial and this is another Saturday Social. So as you would have seen, today I'm going to be talking about cutting tools and the essential cutting tools that you will need to get started with sewing. So there are, I've got 7 types of tools here. So I'm just going to put the phone in the holder and then we can go through them all and what they would be used for, what specifics they would be used for. Okay, so hold on. So here we are. I'm just going to, hopefully I won't turn the phone off. There we go. Right, so there are 8 types of tools that you would need, and let's just clear this off. We've just got it on our cutting mat here, and the first type are fabric shears. Now these have got a long blade and comfortable handles, and they are used, as the name suggests, to cut fabric. So they are going to be the most used tool and the most important tool and for cutting fabric. They should be sharp enough to go through several layers at one time, and this will be a medium to large size blade. If you use small scissors when you're cutting fabric, it can get really hard on the hands. So by using fabric shears like this, which have got more ergonomic handles, then it does make it more comfortable for if you're doing lots of cutting. Fabric shears should not be used for paper, so try to keep them away from the family if you've got young children. It's just that they then get blunt, and it just is not really good practice to use fabric shears for paper. They can be more expensive to buy. The Fiskars brand, which are the orange handled scissors that look a bit like this. These are small embroidery scissors. They can be full fabric scissors range between £20 to £30. So these would be used for cutting your fabric, whether you're dressmaking, curtain making, or quilting. Then these would be used for when you're cutting fabric. You can buy scissor sharpeners. So this is the little handheld one I've got here, and how this works is, so you've got these 2 holes here, and they've got a sharpening blade in the scissor reverse here. So how this works is you would put the scissors into those and just keep going backwards and forwards, sharpening them up like that. So that's how that would work. So that's a scissor sharpener, and they would probably cost about £4. They might look slightly different from that, but the thing will be the same, where you've got the 2 holes to put the blades of the scissors in. So tool number 1, your fabric shears or your fabric scissors. Then the second tool that you would need, and for this I've got these here, are your all-purpose cheap or paper scissors. So you can get, and if you remember those, the rounded blade scissors, you can get them quite cheaply in discount stores and places like that. I'm using, these are my old fabric scissors. Not quite sure what I use them for, but I obviously didn't follow the rule of not using them for anything else. Whether it might have been when I had some applique glue on the fabric, but so these are now been relegated to my paper scissors, and you would use those if you're cutting out patterns and things like that. So that's the second type of scissors that you would need. And then going on is to have some thread snips. So these are thread snips that I've got. They've got a safety cap on them. These sell for about £3 to £4, and so you would cut the threads like that by pressing the two bits together. So they are just really handy to have by your sewing machine, so that when you then take the fabric out of the machine and you've got the threads like this, you can then just get your snips and just snip the thread really easily like that. So that's thread snips. Again, a really useful tool and something to keep by your sewing machine. The next scissors we have are embroidery scissors. Let's just move that out of the way. So these are much smaller than the fabric shears. So these are fabric shears and then the embroidery scissors. So like I showed before, these are Fisker's embroidery scissors. So these ones are a present I had from Rachel, and so those are what I would use for cutting threads near the machine as well. So if you haven't got thread snips, then small scissors like this, they've got a pointed sharp blade, would be really handy to keep by your machine for when you're cutting the threads. They are also really good if you're cutting curves, and you know how if you can imagine that this fabric had a curve in it, when you do the little snips in the curve to help ease, then these have got, you know, a sharp blade all to the end, and you would just snip the fabric like that. So that's the smaller embroidery scissors. And then the next type of scissors we have, or cutter that we have, is a rotary cutter. Now, you may have, if you watch the Sewing Bee, they use, some of them will use rotary cutters for going around dressmaking fabrics, because you can, this has got a safety thing, so it's got an ergonomic handle that you then press to bring the blade out. So if you depress that red button, when you're pressing it, so you can use this freehand. So that's how you would use it, or usually it's used with an acrylic ruler. So here's a small acrylic ruler that I've got, and so you would place the fabric. You would need, if you're using a rotary cutter, you will need to have a self-healing mat underneath it, because these are really sharp blades and you do not want to be using these without the protection between the blade and your table. So this is a cutting mat. You can get these in various sizes, and they've normally got markings for inches or centimetres on them. So you would place your fabric onto the cutting mat and get it lined up, and then let's just say that we wanted to cut it there. You would then hold the acrylic ruler down. You put your hand in that sort of position like that, press down on the blade, slide it up the side of the ruler, and then that is easily cut, and you've then got a straight edge. So that's a rotary cutter. I wouldn't use a rotary cutter if I was cutting out fabric for dressmaking. I prefer to use scissors for that, but I do use a rotary cutter when I'm cutting for quilting, just because it can go through probably about 6 to 8 layers of fabric, gives you a really nice straight cut, so you can be accurate with your edges. And so I would always use a rotary cutter if I was doing cutting up fabric for quilting. So that's the rotary cutter. You can also get them as what they call a stick handle. So you've got the blade here, and then it just comes out like this, so straight. And they would have a little notch here that you would then press up to release the blade and then down to make it safe. So there's the two types of handles. I prefer this type of handle. It's just easier to hold for me. And then we then come on to pinking shears. Now these will give a zigzag edge, as you can see, and this can look quite pretty, but also is really useful to finish off seam allowances. Just cut like that, as the zigzag edge will then help the fabric not to fray. So you can sew your seams through, and then you can trim up and with the pinking shears. So pinking shears are normally a bit more expensive than the fabric shears and can sell up to like £40, but you can find them for like about £15. They're not essential, that they are definitely a nice to have, but they should also be kept away from paper. And unless you've got some older ones that you use for paper. I know that in the past I've maybe cut round designs on Christmas cards with pinking shears and made them into tags for the following year and things like that. It's just that because of the zigzagged blades, they're not easy to sharpen. So once they become dull and blunt, then it will be investing in another pair. So that's why it's best to just keep them for fabric. And then another type of scissor we have are these. So these are Duckbill scissors, and I use these for when I'm doing applique. They're also used a lot if you use lace or if you're doing lingerie, just because it enables you to get closer to the fabric, to cut the thread close to the fabric, but without snagging it. So the flat part of the blade just protects the fabric, so you can get down close and then cut the thread. So I use those when I'm doing free motion embroidery and applique, just to be able to cut the threads close. And then lastly, you probably wouldn't necessarily think of this as a cutting tool, but we have the good old seam ripper, and this one has a safety case as well. So it's just a clove one, and these sell for about £2 to £5, and they have just trying to get it into focus. We have the long blade here, and then a shorter blade which has got a red ball on it, and then in the middle of the V is where the cutting blade is. These are useful to have, probably another very important tool, and you would use these for unpicking seams when mistakes happen and you need to unpick the seams. So I'm just going to just demonstrate. You would slide the longer blade, let's see if we can get this into focus, under the stitch. Let's see, it's a bit difficult to say, and then you just push that through, then choose another stitch about 2 or 3 stitches up, and again cut through. And then sometimes you might have little holes where when you then take the thread out, let's see if I can do that, you might be left with small holes. So how this red ball works is that where the little hole is in the fabric, if you then just go around in a circular motion with the ball, then that actually helps to realign the threads so that you then don't have the hole. So if you were to get started with your sewing kit, then the three things that I would, three tools I would recommend are definitely the fabric scissors, having some scissors for paper, and then a seam ripper would be the three. And the paper scissors don't need to have such a long blade. They can have a shorter blade, just that these are the ones that I use for my paper cutting out. So those are the three essentials. The other types of, like the rotary cutter, if you're going to be doing quilting, then the rotary cutter would be a really useful tool to have. Also investing in the cutting mat and some some acrylic rulers. So this is another acrylic ruler that I have with some more markings on it. And you can get both the mats and the acrylic rulers in different sizes. Then you have your smaller embroidery scissors that you would keep by the machine to cut the threads when you're sewing, or you can use thread snips as well. So there we are. That is a tour around the sewing tools. And just because Vicky mentioned it, so I'm not quite sure if she's watching, so we're on about this good old sound of cutting fabric on a table on a hard surface. So I don't know, I know Rona said that she'd still liked the sound, so there we are. A little bit of sewing noise for you. Okay, so I'm going to take the phone out of the holder so I can hold it. Let's move you around. There. So, did you find that useful? Do you have cutting tools already, or are you starting your sewing journey and looking to know what equipment that you need? I hope that has helped clarify the different types of cutting tools there are, so you know where to get started. Your local fabric stores or Amazon will have lots of choices for you. But if you have got any other questions, then please let me know. I'd love to have your questions and be able to help you. So please do not hesitate to contact me if there's anything that I can help with. I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next Saturday for our next episode of Saturday Social, and I will see you in the group during the week. So take care everybody, and see you soon.